wait a minute as more people are joining in. Morena, everyone, and welcome to our workshop this morning. I'd like to start with a karakia. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho, tuia ki te here tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao, humie, huie, tā ki e. Ko Monica Briggs toku ingoa. I'm the head of the Centre for Social Impact, and I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to you all here this morning to the Kia Whiti Tonu series, To Shine Brightly. It's a free programme of 5 90-minute workshops offered to the community sector by CSI through support from Foundation North. This programme has been developed following the recently released National COVID-19 Impact Survey of the Tangata Whenua community and voluntary organisations. It was carried out in May and June this year by CSI in partnership with Huie Community Aotearoa, Philanthropy New Zealand and Volunteering New Zealand. The findings of the survey were published in the Time to Shine report. The survey identified a strong commitment across the sector to respond, recover and then reshape for the future. And it also identified some key areas where respondents wanted support to help them shine brightly and build back better after the disruption of COVID-19. The 5 workshops being offered cover grant writing, marketing and communications, innovation, strategy and well-being. This is the last of the 5 for the year today. We're aiming to make all the sessions as accessible as possible, as these workshops were oversubscribed. So we'll be recording them and making them available on the CSI website. At the end of the session today, we'll be asking for your short feedback via a survey link in the chat. And we'll also pop the link into an email following the session that will come out on Monday with a kete of goods from today and the presentation from today. It's really important for us to have the information from you to plan any future programme delivery. So if you could take it's a 3-4 minute survey to do that so that we can further respond to the needs of the sector, that would be fantastic. I'd now like to introduce our speaker for today, Suzanne McNichol. Suzanne provides marketing strategy and media relations to the Centre and its partners. She's worked extensively in broadcast media, the arts and culture sector, and also in the not-for-profit sector in management, consulting and governance roles. She specialises in community-led advocacy for not-for-profits, looking to drive change in our sector and creating strategic partnerships in both the public and private sectors. Suzanne developed and launched a business accreditation programme called the Gender Tick for the YWCA Auckland in 2018, and has also worked with numerous community trusts and charities on crowdfunding campaigns. Suzanne is also chair in her spare time of Creative Bay of Plenty, which supports the development and growth of the arts and culture sector in Tūranga Moana and Western Bay of Plenty. Suzanne has lots of amazing information and resources for all of us today. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Suzanne.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou, ko Suzanne McNichol, toko ingoa. Thank you so much for giving up your time today to come and find out a little bit about marketing and communications. As the invite said, it's been pitched probably more as an introduction, a bit of a refresh. And what we're going to be focusing on largely, based on the feedback from the Time to Shine survey, is digital marketing, the importance of social media, and we'll also be looking at the really great basics of your website. So storytelling, digital marketing, and we also had a request for media, how to engage the media, how to get your smaller not-for-profit community group or charity getting some of the media love that our larger charities do. So that's what we're going to cover. I'll just do a little bit about me, but not too much. So here's some of the places I've worked. as Monica said, in broadcast roles, management roles in radio and television. I was also the head of marketing, communications and fundraising at the New Zealand Breast Cancer Foundation for 3 years. That was one of my most favourite roles. I've worked at Spark, I've been a board member for the YWCA, and I've also been a charity coach for the Funding Network when they've done their Funding Network events. One of the things I'm also really proud to be part of is the Community Comms Collective, and I will be pointing you to some of their resources when we get to the media part of the section. So, as you can tell, I've had a haircut since COVID, and none of this experience makes me any kind of expert. In fact, my friends sort of said it just makes you old, but I'm going to share what I've learned along the way in 25 years of marketing and communications. And we will, as I say, try and cover quite a lot of content today. Because we've got so much to cover, I won't be using the Q&A or the chat function, but my plan is to actually have some time at the end to answer questions. And the other thing that I'm hoping to be able to do if I don't get through all of your questions is I will screenshot the chat and then put together an FAQ document that will go up with the Kete resources, as Monica said, and those will be shared with you via email on the Monday. Great. So today we're going to start with identifying your supporters and your stakeholders and going beyond numbers and jargon to create personas that you can imagine, that you can talk to, and that you can build meaningful communication with for volunteering, fundraising, and other in-kind support. I'll talk about crafting your case for support and why you actually need to invest in doing this document. And I'll be referring to the excellent grant writing workshop that Adrian and Anne provided yesterday. So I'll be encouraging you to look up the notes and the recording from that workshop. Storytelling, a little bit like pivot, it has been an overused word, but it's very important. And we're going to talk about how to tell your story, and most importantly, how to gather stories and then how to share those stories. Digital marketing is such a huge, complex beast, and there is so much to know. And for me today, I want to focus on the website. So what you should be looking at on your website to make sure that it's working really hard for you as a portal for your communication and amplifying all the important messages about the work that you do. I'll then talk about content marketing, which, yes, does obviously include stories and how you share them, but is really around search engine optimization and the importance of getting your content to work to rank you near the top of a search engine result page, so or an SERP, as we call them. Social media is absolutely pivotal, and I'll be talking about how people are using social media in New Zealand and some of the hacks and tips that you can use to actually make your social media more effective. Finally, I'll do a quick once over on email, because email is one of the primary tools for digital marketing that everyone can do, and it can be so effective. But I'm going to go through some of the, I guess, the primary principles of good email marketing. Befriending the media is a section where largely I'll talk about what is news, how to know what is news, how to build good relationships with media, and how to be prepared. I haven't covered or planned to cover crisis communications in this. However, if we've got time and there's any questions, I'll see what I can do. As Monica said, there will be time for questions at the end, where I will jump out of the presentation and answer what I can. So thank you all very much for making time to come today. Right, so your supporters. when we're looking at that, you know, all of us in the middle, whether we're a charity, whether we're a not-for-profit, whether we're an NGO, or we might be a single, you know, a lone fundraiser, we've all got a community of people around us. So our community are those people that you serve or you represent. If you are in the performing arts, then they are artists, producers, and makers. In the education sector, they will be teachers, students, and delivery partners. And obviously in the health sector, that will be, you know, doctors, patients, and other, you know, therapy workers who work there. So the really key thing, I think, is to understand who you're talking to, what they need to know, and how you're going to tell them. And so the next part of the work that we're going to talk about is development of personas. So the reason for doing this, obviously, is community organisations who are better at knowing and understanding who their supporters are generally have more effective return on investment for both their fundraising and their communications. They get better open rates, obviously, on emails, marketing, better shares, likes, and support through social media, and more generally get better traffic to their website. Personas, what are they? Right. So personas are a small group of people with faces, names, clear backgrounds, and if you understand their goals and their challenges, they are much easier to talk to than a very vague list of data points. And knowing that your, you know, typical customer, for example, might be aged between 25 to 30, is female, possibly Māori, might live in Northland, and needs your services on an ad hoc basis for home care. It's hard to write for that person, but if you give her a name and you talk about the place where she lives, you understand that she might have children, that she has a good neighbourhood support network, that she's interfaced with other charities before, then that actually really helps you to talk to that person like a person and to focus your marketing efforts and communications authentically. The benefit of knowing, obviously, who you're talking to through the marketing is huge. It will help you maximise your limited sort of financial resources and human resources. And as I said, it will really help you improve your marketing return on investment. Being able to move beyond numbers and jargon is a critical part of storytelling and being able to communicate really effectively with your target audiences. So personas really allow you, I guess what they allow you to do is to walk in your audience's shoes and to understand better what they need from you. You can then mobilize these supporters by looking, you know, considering the goals and the challenges that they're facing and aligning your services and your cause with what they need. So within those personas, understanding who they are, you need to initially gear them to building relationships and then ultimately driving those personas into action, whether that's to go to your website, whether it's to donate, whether it is to fundraise on behalf, or whether it's to sign a petition advocating for legislative change in some cases. There's lots of ways of doing personas, and I'm going to talk through those in the next slide. I've also provided a really nice one-page example that has been used by the National Strategy for Community Governance. And those of you who've been following CSI's work will know that there's a national action plan for community governance, and that the action plan has been broken out to address the needs of chairs, new directors, existing directors, community organisations, and those that bridge charities or not-for-profits. And what we found with working for the National Action Plan was that knowing we were talking to a person who was perhaps a young Māori director from Rotorua who was their first time on a board, helped us to understand what they might need. consequently being able to address the needs of a first-time chair or someone who has just been, who is an experienced director, but has joined a board that has got a lot of inexperienced directors, helped us to both shape the offering and the product, but also how to communicate with them. So there's really, I also encourage you, if you've got time and you're really interested in the persona development work and you want to see how it was affected, Dr. Joe Cribb has put up under the Sprinting for Good program on our CSI website, basically a program of how to use personas, and I do encourage you to look at that. I need to rush on because I'm running out of time. Right. Okay, right. So a target audience persona outlines a typical member of a target audience. These people, as I said, are rooted in fictional representations. It's behavioural data. It's knowledge that you've gained from getting to know your supporters on a personal level, from the conversations you've had with them, with the workshops you've held, the phone conversations you've had. You use the data from your whole target audience to create a persona, but what that means is you'll have one specific person to represent what you know about each of your target audiences when you're communicating with them. So you can see I've pulled off, I've put together here a little bit of a background, and this is what we do. Where do they work? Do they have university education? Are they married? Do they have kids? What kind of supporter are they, and how are you currently communicating with them? So the basics to putting your persona together is to understand and put some flesh on the bones of their background, their demographics, as much as you can find out, their identifiers, their goals, what they really need from you in the organisation, challenges, common objections, and how your nonprofit helps. And we'll talk about this more in storytelling, but understanding the difference that you make to that persona is going to be critical for all of your communications, online, offline, and face-to-face if you're doing events. Finally, a good persona output is that elevator pitch. How you say to someone basically in less than a minute who you are as an organisation, who you help, how they benefit, and what success looks like. And all of those things come together to give you your key marketing message. Right, so that's basically personas. I'm now going to move on to your case for support and to talk about what that is and why we should have it. Right, so a case for support is not a briefcase. What it is it's a document that really has all of the key facts and figures, the juicy bits about your organisation. And building and investing in one of these and keeping it updated is critical. How you'll use it obviously for funding and grant applications to make sure that you can align the work that you do with the funding priorities of the granting organisation you're applying to. You'll also use it obviously as part of your branding and part of your visual marketing and written communications to partners, stakeholders, local government organisations, and other charities or groups that work in the same space. The case for support, as I've said, what it is, as you can see, it is your key message, who you are, what you do. And it needs to be a really emotionally compelling document that casts the vision for your organisation, and it tells your supporters why they should invest in your work, whether that's time as volunteers, financial support, or advocating on your behalf. So as you can see from the little diagram there, the need for the case is to communicate your reason for existence, the problem that you are solving. People will give and support organisations that fix problems rather than organisations that have problems, and that's really important to keep in mind. The challenge obviously is helping the public and stakeholders understand that problem you're solving and why you're there. And then the linked challenge with the case for support is turning that communication and understanding into support. So the structure basically is who you are and what do you do. Again, why do you exist? What is distinctive about you as opposed to others who might be in your similar sector? The need that you're meeting, and how will their support, whether it's donor support, volunteering support, enable that need to be met. It's really important to be able to know and to articulate in your case for support the range of ways in which people can become involved. They don't need to be cash donors necessarily. They might be advocates for you. They might be volunteers for you. They might actually even be able to provide in-kind, services such as advertising, promotion, cheaper deals on office support. So actually understanding and explaining how the donor can become involved is very important. And then finally, I guess, but most importantly, what's in it for them? Why should they support you? I think the key things here is, and I'm going to talk now, but the really key thing is that a lot of people don't want to invest in small organisations, but they do want to invest in something that's got a big vision. So a big vision is ending child poverty, making sure that every young child can read and write, fixing homelessness, removing barriers to gender equity. So that's your big vision, making sure that women and men are paid the same. You might only be working perhaps in one small corner of a cause or in one small town. But for the people you serve, your work is really life-changing, and your case for support helps you communicate that. When you're telling that case for support, talk about the number of lives that you've changed, show people the outcomes you've achieved, and show them what's possible with their support. And like any good sort of story, you need to have, I guess, a plot. So that's what's going on in the community, the problem. The villain is the problem that you're addressing. The hero are the people, the community that you're talking to around you. And then you invite those heroes, your supporters, your audience, and your followers to become part of the success, to become heroes and solve that problem. The other good thing I think within a case for support is to look at things like core human values. People support things such as freedom, safety, good health, a better life for our children. We might all argue about how to achieve those things, but most of us as humans agree that they're important. So successful case for support are tailored to those key values and usually link what they do to those fundamentals that humans care about. And I think, the best way to do this is to understand the way that your charity or your cause actually solves that problem. You can tell people about your individual programs, but actually saying, for example, if you are putting heating into low decile homes, that you're not just, putting heaters in homes, you're keeping families warm, you're enabling them to go to school. The other thing is to use real life examples and outcomes, and this comes back to your personas. So not just having a picture in your mind of the age, stage, environment, preferences of a person, but being able to talk about Luann from New Lynn, who is a working mum, but has trying to get her child into a literacy program because he has learning disabilities. To be able to share how, with the help of your organisation, that child has met his benchmarks and that has enabled Luann to take on more work or to change her hours because she doesn't now need to invest as much time at home helping her son Timothy get to a reading literacy level. That's just an example, but you know how to do this. So I think the other side of that, I'm now going to talk a little bit about a couple of charities that I saw in the last 6 months. They're both New Zealand ones, and they've done that. They've cast a big vision. They've appealed to human values, And they have managed to close, I think, the knowledge gap between their organisation and the people who can be supporting them. So this is into our storytelling from the case for support. We look at the process, I guess, of combining facts and narratives to communicate a message and an emotion to your target audience. You want to close the knowledge gap, as I said, between supporters and your organisation. I think a lot of you hopefully saw the really great campaign that Kids Can ran over COVID-19. Rather than saying, we've suffered from a lack of funding because people are not at work, people are at home. They've gone to those human values. It's made us afraid. It's taken our freedom. It's left kids hungry. It's taken so much from us. And then the kicker at the bottom, here's how you can help. But it could have some good to give. The other one that I wanted to talk about is the Women's Refuge. And again, they've used basically really powerful numbers to say that a night of safety, $20 donation will give one woman, one of 160 women who are affected by violence in the home, a night of safety and a place to escape to. And finally, there's generosity.org, who are a great international charity who use basically their social media to film and capture real life action of them installing wells, making a difference for a community. You'll note that it says it now serves 250 people. So we know how many people have benefited from that campaign that they've given to. Excuse me, talking's thirsty. Great. So casting a big vision is really important. Appealing to core human values is critically important. Using real examples and outcomes. Those are the key principles of storytelling. If you remember nothing else from that, remember this. I think one of the really good things about creating stories and putting them together is you need to hook your supporters in. So you'll see that there's a really good hook there with both the Kids Can one and with the Safe Night, etc. And the other thing I'll talk about with storytelling is video is really compelling. Obviously, it combines sound, movement, images, but more than that, you can embed it into your emails, you can host it on your website, you can share and link to it from your Facebook or your TikTok or your Instagram channels, and it becomes a way of moving beyond the numbers to actually showing the real life impact of what you do. So if you haven't already got some kind of commitment to capturing video for the major things that you're going to deliver throughout the year, please try and make it a priority. Everyone's got pretty good cell phones these days, and free apps such as Canva have got free video making software where you can even put together some stills, add some compelling text and a nice royalty-free soundtrack and make your own video telling the success of what you've done. So video, really important. Often people want to know about, how to collect stories, and that can really be an issue. Particularly, I've worked in smaller charities. How, when there's only 2 or 3 of you and maybe 10 volunteers, do you get those stories? How do you get the information you need from the community you serve to help them, to help others to understand what you do? So there's a couple of things that I always look at. The first thing is to create a story calendar, and that can just be an Excel spreadsheet that has throughout the year when your major campaigns are, whether that's Christmas, whether it's your appeal week, whether it is International Women's Day to raise awareness of period poverty and other women's issues, for example. But that calendar of storytelling should be aligning with your fundraising schedule and your marketing schedule. The other great tool, and we use this all the time, I've used this with the Greyhound Adoption Program and also with Creative Bay of Plenty, is a monthly email or a call for stories. And that should go out to your staff, but can also go out to volunteers who are working at the coalface for your cause. If you give them some direction on what it is they need, there's a little format or a template, then that will be really helpful. I can provide or share a link to one of those as part of the FAQ. But basically, it's got a 5-point, it's a little framework that says what your staff or your volunteer needs to find out from the person that they've helped. And then you can use that as a framework to be able to tell their story and make it really compelling. One of those ways of doing that is actually to set up a Google form, and Google forms are a really good evergreen way, which means that they last forever, to facilitate the collection of stories. So actually having something like that everyone can access and you can then share as a group or an organisation is a really good tool to have. And then I think looking at sharing the stories, the two key things that I would probably say is having access or using, if you haven't, something like Tumblr, Tumbr. That means you can create and develop your stories and save them for future use. So it means you can create tags to use them down the road, which means that when you are looking to redo fresh assets or to look back on a year in review, it's really easy to find that content. The other thing that is really important when you create stories, and I'll talk about this in social media, is to use hashtags. Hashtags for charities and for causes are important. They're important because if you can hijack one for, fair pay, for example, or for Action for All, or for, let me think, reading matters, then you're harnessing you're not just promoting your message, you're actually harnessing the power of all the other people who've used that hashtag, which means that when people are searching those hashtags, they're going to be driving traffic to your website, to your Instagram feed, or to your Facebook feed. We're going to move into digital marketing. So I think there's a lot there to look at. A lot of people, some of the people on this audience will be adroit at pretty much all of this, or will have dabbled with a little bit. Today, I'm going to talk about, as I said, search engine optimization. I'll talk about content marketing, and we'll talk about social media. There's a really cool, I guess, like anything that you do with digital marketing, it's very important to define your goals. Reaching more people is not a goal. Well, it is a goal, but it's not really a very measurable goal. Trying to expand your reach for a particular region or a type of demographic, or to increase the number of clicks or connections to your website or email signups is a measurable goal. So you should always start every campaign that is going to be using digital platform with key goals. So let's say it is an annual appeal. At that point, you would have a fundraising target, either regionally or nationally. You might have broken that target out into a street appeal or a door-to-door appeal. There might be some events that are going to drive revenue and support, and you might actually be using something like a Give a Little page and some video marketing to do a one-off campaign. Once you've worked out what those macro goals are, you then need to set expectations and key performance indicators, and that's really important. So again, is it a financial target? Is it the acquisition of a new number of volunteers? Is it meeting a matched target from a corporate sponsor or a matched number of sign-ups to their page so that you can get a donation? Obviously, you'll need to uncover your target audience interests, but you'll already know that because hopefully you've built your personas and you've been using case studies and success stories as part of your content marketing and part of your storytelling. And then putting all of that together, you're going to focus on building a really strong online brand that tells people what you're here for, what you need them to do, and what their support is going to mean to the people that you're serving. Hopefully you're all following me so far, and sorry if it's a ramble, but there's a lot to get through. Okay, look, the most fundamental thing that any not-for-profit can have is your website. All right, so if you haven't actually done this yet, one of the things I would say is look at getting a website usability assessment. There's a link at the bottom of the slide which you'll be able to get that takes you to a couple of free platforms where you can do that. Usability is about how good your website design is. How many clicks do people have to go through to actually find out what it is you do, or how to donate, or where you operate? You need to design around those specific goals or actions. So if your goal or your action is to get is to end homelessness or to address the housing shortage, then you need to make sure that that message is front and clear up front, and that all of your communications on that homepage show how that your charity is doing that, or your community organisation. Always, always try and tell your story really simply and clearly. And that might sound like it's a really obvious thing to do, but people have a very short attention span. Most people, when they click onto a website, will click off really quickly if they can't find the story or the call to action or the information that they're looking for. So the top things that you should always have on the homepage of your website are a donate button, which does not need to say necessarily donate. It might say help us now, or buy a safe night, or buy a pair of shoes for a child in need. But you need to have some kind of call to action as to how that person can help up front. The other thing that people often tend to miss is, or bury in the footer, is contact us. And that's also really important, because if people want to find out more and they can't do that, then you'll lose them and they'll go back to Google search and look for another charity. The real key, I guess, as you'll see from the pyramid description here, is that when people come in, to the website, your primary goal is to raise that awareness, to engage your visitors so that you can build a community, to try and convert them into volunteers, supporters, email subscribers, and then eventually, hopefully, if you've done a good job on the website, told your story, then they will be more likely to give you, hopefully, financial support. The other key thing is that websites do need to be refreshed continually to improve your usability, and I'm going to talk about how what you measure on the website and the things that you should be looking out for to make sure that your website is providing an optimal experience. Right, so content marketing, for those of you that don't know, is around search engine optimization and search engine management. I think just about the biggest search engine, as you all know, is Google. And getting keywords is really critical for your search ranking. It's also really critical for website redesign. People who haven't actually put search into their website design often find they will be on the bottom of the first page, or worse, on the second or third page. There are some really good free tools for charities, for not-for-profits, and for community organisations. Now, these include Google Ad Grants. So if you haven't had a look at that yet, go onto Google and fill out the form. It's very generic. So for example, if you're an animal charity, it can be hard to fit your organization's purpose around the sustainable development goals that Google uses as part of its criteria, but it can be done. The other things that you'll need to look at for content marketing are potentially Google Apps, and you should also, if you haven't already, avail yourself of the tutoring school and measurement framework that is available for YouTube nonprofits. They are both amazing. I've actually just realised that I've missed something, so I'm going to just come back if you don't mind, and I hope you're following. Right, so around those fundamentals, you need to know your audience. You need to know how they interact with your site. If you understand why they're there and what they want from you, then those are basically the principles of really good design. Use the right language. Language is really important. Writing for the web is, it's an art, not a science, but try and avoid jargon and try and go back to what we talked about before, human values, measurable impact, and numbers that people can see and relate to. In 3 years' time, probably if it's not already, given the huge uptake of mobile devices, mobile will be the #1 method that your website will be accessed by. So if you haven't already examined your mobile optimization experience, then absolutely look at it. We're busy these days, and most of us are using our mobile phone for just about everything. The best practice #2 is obviously, as I said, to focus on that home page. You need to prioritize content, create a visual hierarchy so you can direct people to the content elements that are the most important. And remember that what your goals are and your actions are, as well as your audiences during this phase. Share your mission, obviously, really important at the top of the homepage, and use compelling imagery. It doesn't matter if they are free images, but make sure that you've downloaded something that really shows in a picture who you are and what you do and the difference that you make. The other really important thing is obviously to ensure that ease of navigation. You need to provide multiple interaction paths for people to find out more about what you do, to be able to support you via a donation. And actually you need to test this yourself. So if it takes more than maybe say 2 clicks or less for key tasks to get to one of those actions, well done, you've nailed it. If it's taking more, then you really need to look at how to shorten that journey, because people will actually want to get the information straight up front. And if it's 3, 4 or more clicks to actually find out how to adopt a dog or how to donate to your organisation, people will get frustrated and they will leave. The other thing I'll actually say about the website is that you need to include bold calls to action, obviously, and you need to showcase your stewardship. So do actually show how people have helped you, whether that's individual donors who've got behind a crowdfunding campaign, or whether it's a trust or foundation that's enabled you to buy a new van or a new mobility facility. Then do put that there. People like to see how other people have helped you, because it shows that A, you're making a difference, and B, that that they can make a difference too by donating. You need to keep your content really fresh, all right? So that doesn't mean to say updating every week, but looking at something where the last page has been updated 6 months ago gives a really bad message that your organisation hasn't done anything in that time, and that's generally not the case. So make sure that you've built an asset library so you can change out images, that you can prioritise hero campaigns, and that you can then share those easily to social. So the final most important thing on your website is your social media links, where you encourage people to sign up, to follow you, so that likewise you can share content back to your website and out through your EDM. Right, quickly, on SEO and SEM. There we go. Whoops, we're ahead. Okay. So I guess the key things I'm going to talk about with search engine optimization and SEM is that it's about your user experience. It is about really communicating your value as a site to search engines. Basically Google's search algorithm consists of hundreds of ranking factors, and it's very user focused. So it tends to prioritize those sites that have got an optimal user experience as one of its ranking factors. So using the right keywords and putting them in the right places is going to improve basically your search engine ranking. There's probably, I'd think, if I'm going to cover this very briefly, there's 7 major SEO tips to help your organization get started on this journey to being on the first page of one of those search results. The first, as I've said, is you have to use the right target keywords. So it can be helpful to write with a keyword in mind, like adoption or action or circus, for example, if you are circability. You need to use keywords to inspire the content of your pieces, whether that's a blog, but using those keywords helps you communicate with Google as to the key purpose of your organization. I think, as I've said before, it's really important to remember that you're writing for a human and not a search engine. So you'll know yourselves when you Google something, you might write where is, or where can I find a dairy near me, or where can I find a dog adoption. So, it might be that you need to actually have keywords around dog adoption that has rescue dog, has mobility dog, has assistance dog, and then you've also tried to put in keywords around those main dogs that make really good assistance pets, maybe Labradors, for example. I think, as I say, the most important way to identify your keyword is to make sure it's really relevant to your organization. So you want to make sure that the key thing that you do is represented as your keyword. The second thing is you have to have high quality content. That saying that content is king is really true. So being able to invest in content, writing a blog, writing an article that has got some interest on how to settle your new dog in your home, for example, or how to help by baking for new mums is important. The blog posts should be based around what you do, but they shouldn't necessarily be an ad. Don't be scared to use real stories. Don't be scared to do wider research and to make sure that you're adding something to the audience, which means that they'll come back to your website and back to you, back to your social media pages for more information. Finally, as I said, I've talked about YouTube, but YouTube is actually the second largest search engine in the world because now everyone wants to be on TV. So making sure that if you are creating videos, that you're uploading those videos in an organized manner, that it's very easy for your followers and for others to find you on YouTube and to share them. If you're sharing these videos throughout your website and throughout your social media channels, this is obviously going to help you basically improve your search rankings on YouTube and also on Google. Right. Final things I'd probably say on search engine optimization and search engine marketing is that you need to optimize those local SEO opportunities. So those are things like making sure you claim your listing of your location of where you are. So something like Google My Business to ensure that your organization appears for those branded keywords is a really good thing to do. So for example, you could look at Second Chance Dog Rescue, or you're using local searches where keywords are used with local qualifiers, and that might be dog rescue, whangarei. You don't have to know a lot about search engine optimization, but you do need to know that it's changing all the time, that Google's algorithms are changing all the time. So if you've got time to subscribe to free resources like Marketing Weekly, or even, as I said, the YouTube nonprofits and Google Ad Grants, they will keep you up to date with new developments so that you can actually use those as hacks to improve your own website and your own digital marketing. Right. Are we going for time, Amy? We really need to work through here now. Right. So social media is the most thing. We saw this in COVID, how important social media was. And the key things that I would probably want to say here is, if you haven't done this already, do set up your accounts as non-profits. Most of those then come with discounted and free tools for non-profits, and they're also eligible for search ranking and prioritized treatment on those platforms. If you've added donations, and you can add donations on Facebook, that functionality is coming, then do that. And also, I think probably most importantly, use those free training and webinars. There is a ton of stuff that is coming out now, just about everyone from the Fundraising Institute of New Zealand through to places like Meltwater News, if you subscribe to that Meltwater clipping service, and other organisations like this one are doing a lot of training. So if you can, do what you've done today and use free training and resources. They'll really help you. I would definitely develop guidelines and policies for social media. I think we've all seen what happens when people have used the wrong tag word, or they haven't approved a post, or they've blown up something into a social media pylon because there hasn't been policies and protocols about how and when to post. So that's very, very important. You need to create a content calendar, and I've provided one of those in your kete that you can use as a template. And most importantly, as I've said before, post shareable content, stuff that is going to make people's hearts swell, make them stop and think. So the investment in good content, good messages, something that will make people smile, make them think, is a really important thing for social media. The other thing that I would actually say about that is you have to follow the news cycle. So don't be scared to actually hijack that and talk about the latest statistics in prices for home ownership, for example, to address the fact that your charity is trying to address that housing shortage in high need areas. Run the hashtag campaign so that you can actually tag all of your assets and practices to a hashtag, and you can then link those hashtags back to your website. And one of the things you can actually do, obviously, is to make sure that you do hashtag and that you do boost your signal by linking in with your partners. Those might be sponsors, they might be granting partners, or they might be delivery partners, but make sure that you do tag them in. Obviously, that is going to grow your reach. Sometimes you might even want to host an online event, and they're a really great way of a live stream to, again, grow your audience and to grow your followers. I'm going to talk a little bit, about the audiences. So 89% of New Zealanders have internet access. 82% of them use social media. 90% of millennials use it. 38% of Generation X and 48% of boomers. So in New Zealand, we've got 3.6 million Facebook users and 1.57 million Instagram users. So that's really all you need to know about why you need to be there. You can have a look at the global demographic breakdown there just to see see how that compares. Interestingly, 85% of Snapchat's users are between the ages of 18 and 34. So if that's not a priority audience for you, you really don't need to be there. For those of you that, I think most of us know this, but this is just a nice little summary basically of the platform, who they target, and how you can use them. So TikTok, everyone's been asking me about TikTok. Should I use it? Yeah, absolutely, if you can do it well and you've actually got a content marketing strategy that is going to be able to use TikTok well. So the thing with these these new platforms is they're predominantly younger, and I don't know if anyone's seen that ad where I think it's for KFC, where the parent comes in, the child comes in and sees the parent doing we're making a tok video. If you're going to do it, make sure you do it authentically with people who your audience is going to resonate with. No one wants to look at like dad at the disco. So strategy and measurement is really, really important with social media, and the measures that you need to look at are engagement. So how many people have liked the post, how many people have shared the post, how many the post has reached if you've boosted that post. You will also be able to look at, if you've set your website Google Analytics up properly, your traffic to and from the website from your social media posts. EDM signups, when you do an email newsletter, it's awesome. You should always post it to or link to it from your Instagram or your Facebook. That enables a lot of people who haven't followed you to be able to find you and then engage more richly with the work that you do. And then finally, obviously, the number of repeat views that you get for your post is another really important measure to include. I'm going to talk a little bit about vanity metrics, and you might sort of be wondering rather than what those are. So having a social media strategy, you know, is probably the most important thing for you to do. You need to know what success is going to look like for you in a year from now, how many followers you want to have. How do you know that you're accomplishing your goals with the help of social media? And what are the 3 sort of quantitative metrics that you're going to measure? So it doesn't matter which one of these you choose on the screen, but just choose 2 or 3 and focus on those before moving to try and shift the needle with others. Your qualitative metrics are subjective, and those are generally based on things like observations, stories, anecdotes that people might share as part of engaging with you, as opposed to those hard numbers like reach, share, and likes. Rather than sort of, rather than focusing on sort of, as I say, just likes for likes' sake, you might want to look at things like how many people shared that content, how many people have commented obviously on it, and that richer level of engagement. But the most important thing, I think, really, as I say, and I'll come back to it, is to have a strategy to start with. Have a strategy so you know that social media is not just hit and miss. So, what do you actually need? You need to actually have Google Analytics set up on your website. It's very easy, and there's a range of measures that you can use. If you've set it up properly, then it will be able to track the traffic from both your social media channels and from your MailChimp or from your CRM, if that's how you've set it up. The kind of things that you need to think about, as I said, are your unique visitors. You want to track your most popular content, how people find you, what are social media referrals, and what are the actions from the post that show those real values. I've talked a little bit about having the plan, and then you'll see on the left some of the things that you need to look at when you do your strategy. How did we overcome obstacles? What should we have done differently? Can we use this strategy as a model for our future efforts? And I think those are the key things, probably with just about any strategy, but certainly with social media and with digital strategy. Peter Drucker's once said, if you can't manage what you don't measure. So measurement is really key, but counting what counts is probably more important. Right, email marketing, very quickly. It is really important to do this, and I think there'll probably be some questions on how often should I market. My view is you should do a monthly newsletter if you can, or at the very least a quarterly newsletter to everybody that updates on your programs, your services, your successes, and gives them a heads up on any campaign. But with that said, if you're actually wanting to talk only to volunteers, then perhaps do a special volunteer newsletter. Or if you only want to talk to people in a particular area and about an event that you're hosting, then don't send that to everyone, because that's just annoying. So that's what I'm saying is, don't spray and pray. Think about the message that you want, the purpose of sending out that email, and have a plan. And as I said, content is king. So say it with a great picture, have a really good think about what your subject line is, and spend time on design. I am probably personally known for sending about 8 test emails to myself just to make sure that it reads well, that the links are working, and that it looks as it should. Don't make sure, obviously, within the content, that rather than having long paragraphs, you've got a very short little descriptor with a link to your website where they can find out more. The aim is obviously to make the newsletter engaging, compelling, and also to drive web traffic responses. I've said here, test, test, test. That means 2 things. One, you can test subject headlines, you can test sending groups, you can test formats. MailChimp allows you to do A/B testing, which means you can send out the same headline, but change the same newsletter, but change out the headline. So that might mean that, you've changed just a change in wording. It might mean your open rate moves from 37% from one to something like 63% to another. So don't be scared to test and to take the learnings from those things. What time is now? That means MailChimp and most other email marketing programs will tell you what the optimal time is to send your newsletter. That's based on your past campaigns, but it's often based also on local data in New Zealand for similar marketers. So they'll have a model for retail, they've got a model for charity, and they've got a model for news. So do think carefully about when you want people to read this and when they're more likely to engage. And finally, as I've said, share to social. It's really important that you share and embed your newsletter to social with a quick little post that says, meet our new cover person, our Christmas stock is in store now, click here. Linking to that letter, linking to the EDM, which will show as a digital screen, is a really great thing to do. So if you don't do that already, absolutely post your email newsletters to your social media channels. Great. Right. We are now into media, which means I'm running on time, I think. What I've heard from the Time to Shine survey was that a lot of you really wanted to be able to engage the media and wanted to know how you can tell your story to show communities and to show New Zealanders what you're doing and the difference you're making. And a couple of comments were, we don't have a PR person. We don't have even a communications resource. In fact, volunteers do our newsletters. So how do we engage with the media? There's probably several things. And I guess the first thing is you need to respond promptly. If someone rings you up because there's a national story on decreasing child literacy rates, and you are a local charity that helps put programs into school to improve those, you do need to respond promptly. Get on the phone, do what I call stall but call, ring them and find out what their deadline is, what they need to know from you, and then tell them that you'll get back to them, and then do it. The other thing is to make it really easy. Newsrooms these days are really understaffed, and I cannot underestimate or cannot emphasize enough the power of a really good media pitch. A good media pitch, and the Community Comms Collective will talk to you about this, or you can find out more, is something that includes the key messages of who, what, when, where, and why you're doing. It has a good quality photo that will be okay for printing or putting up on digital media. And that photo should actually have a photo credit, and it should name in the title or in the email those people and who they are and what they do. You need to, if you've got, in terms of making it easy, they might not just want to interview you, they might want to interview one of the younger students that you help. So you need to line up someone who's good talent and can be available. Packaging all of that up together and giving it to a reporter is probably one of the best things you can do. If you make it easy and they know they can come and talk to you, they can interview someone you've helped, and they can take that back and then splice it into the wider news story of, you know, why New Zealand's literacy rates have fallen, you are actually doing their job for them. So think that journos are time poor, and it's your job to tell them what they don't know. You need to pitch appropriately for the medium. So if it's TV, it has to be pictures. If it's radio, think about being able to supply a sound file or supply something else. And if it's digital, remember that those pages are refreshed all the time. So supply more than one image or some other assets so that they can change out and refresh that content if it starts to get lots of clicks and likes. The key things that I always talk about with media, and actually with any form of communication, is what are you saying, and then so what? Why should I care? If you haven't managed to actually put that together into a tight sort of release or a communication or a pitch email, then scrub it out and start again. In the first paragraph should be what you're doing, the difference you're making, the relevance it has perhaps to a New Zealand trend or a global trend. So that's your what and your so what. And one of the things you also need to remember is if you've got some media coverage, then don't forget to keep giving to maintain the relationship. Add to that journalist to your email newsletter, send out, or think about putting together a digest of facts, statistics, and stories around your cause or your charity to send out to them early in December. Often news media outlets are looking for filler content between that Christmas and New Year if there hasn't been a disaster, and they're looking to, you know, fill content. So if you can put something to them that says, here's what we've done this year, this is a story that I think your readers will respond to, then absolutely do that. And don't be scared to update facts and stats. You want people to come to you because you're positioned as the expert. Now, the Community Comms Collective, for those of you that don't know, is an absolutely fabulous organisation, and it is there to help community groups, organisations and not-for-profits build meaningful relationships with the media. What I need to tell you is it's staffed by or supported by probably over 100 volunteer publicity, communications and marketing people, and they've built an incredible set of resources that you can actually download and use as templates. These include outlines for a press release. There's also a free media database that you can download, which they keep updated. And there are other things like how to write a communications plan. So I urge you to have a look at this website and to get in touch with them. If you've got a need and you really want to get some expert help, then they will help you, but not on an ongoing basis. So for a project or something, they will help you with a communications plan. They might help you write your press release and draft it, and they'll give you that oversight. So I cannot say enough. If this is something that you've struggled with and you really want to improve in this area of media engagement, then the Community Comms Collective is a fantastic resource. So very quickly, while we move forward, I'll need to just talk to you about what is news. News is generally, as I said, local angles on national stories. So find a way in which you can insert yourself into the wider context of an issue that's going on. It can be expert and informed comment if you have got doctors, scientists, researchers, other people who are either on your board or are program advisors to the charity or the cause, then absolutely make sure that they are there to provide commentary, sound bites, or a lens on a latest update on statistics. Surveys and consumer trends are good. So if you are part of an organisation that's done this or contributed to it, absolutely promote that in bite-sized bits with a killer sort of pull-out statistic that will make people think and want to know more. What else is news? Solutions to customer problems, obviously. Is something you're doing, is it new? Is it first? Is it the last? Is it unique? It could be the biggest ever. And conflict and drama, which I've put as an asterisk. You need to approach that with caution. If there's if you're advocating to save a tree, for example, or a series of trees in your local neighbourhood, and there's some opposition, you can pitch that, but you need to consider very carefully how you're positioning your cause and your organisation, and what might happen if you open that particular Pandora's box. Likewise, you might think that you're pitching a really good news media story only to find that your reporter has managed to find someone who hates what you're doing and thinks that it's a really bad idea and they don't want it in their backyard. So because journalists do like conflict and drama because they get clicks, just always think about, when you put a story out, is there anyone who's a naysayer and how can I mitigate for that? Right. I've got a resource that I'll be able to share with you if anyone's interested, but there's much better ones on the Community Comms Collective on top tips for doing interviews. With print and online, you always need to check the deadlines. Online these days, deadlines are like buses. There's another one coming along every minute. Do your research. Highlight the numbers in the surveys, create those photo opportunities, and dare I say it, present really interesting and relevant information. And a good way of checking this is to share it with someone who's outside of your organisation, because sometimes what's business as usual for us is actually really interesting to a journalist or to the public, because it's not the world that they operate in. So how could they be expected to know? And don't forget, as I've said, as part of the storytelling, to reinforce your main points with real examples of how you've helped, who that person is, and the difference it's made in their life. Radio is great, and lots of interviews these days for radio are done by a phone. So the key thing I'll say, starting from the bottom, avoid mobile phones if you can. I've had a couple of people who've had really bad interviews because they were somewhere where the mobile coverage was less than optimal. Watch your pace. So don't talk as quickly as I am, but don't necessarily talk as slowly as this. Use words to create a picture rather than saying something is 500 meters wide. Say it's the size of a rugby pitch so people can visualize and understand it. It might sound stupid, but be interesting, all right? So don't be scared to put something in that, you think people will want to know, and that's why you've got the interview. The other thing I often find is if you're a little bit nervous, it's good to smile when you're talking, because people can hear it in your voice and it makes you sound warmer and it makes you sound more collegial and open. Probably the number one thing I would say with any form of media engagement is to have really good sound bites. And that is the best way that you can control making sure your key messages get out. So spend some time developing, as part of your communications plan, some sound bites that tell a story or that have got a really nicely summarize an anecdote that that will be hopefully used on radio or TV. when people spend time, or when journalists spend time editing a piece, you want to make sure that they edit the bit you want to keep in with your key message. So it's really worth investing in that. TV, very simply, don't look at the camera, be concise, use strong language, and give examples. And out of all of this, possibly remember, I have to say this, nothing is off the record. So when they're miking you up or talking to you on the phone before it goes live, anything that you say will be used. So if there's one thing you take away from this, you have to assume that everything you say to a journalist is actually going to be part of the story, or could potentially be part of the story. Right, so as I've said, you can go to the Community Comms Collective and get a media release, a media contact list. There's a pitching guide and tons of other really great stuff. If you want to know more about that, then reach out to them. I've worked with a couple of not-for-profits, helping write communications plans and a publicity plan, and it's really rewarding. It's great, and it's good to have those tools in your back pocket. Finally, I guess the takeaways are there is now still money out there for charities and for not-for-profits and trusts, especially post-COVID-19. The Ministry for Culture and Heritage, for example, has got some $700 million that is out there to help charities. There are also, I think you'll have seen both regionally and nationally, a lot of funds and granting organisations that have opened up specific funds for capacity and capability building. Find out about those and focus your efforts on those, because that will make it a lot easier. If you use an existing platform like Give a Little, then actually audit that platform, change it up, refresh the content, make sure that it's got a really good photo, video, and a story that reflects your campaign, and then get out there and promote it, test it, and see if the story of one of your community is actually going to be the lift in driving donations and traffic to your website. I've made a note here to fish your feet first. That's an old saying of my dad's, which means that, don't forget to talk to your own volunteers and the people who are working for you and your own sponsors and partners to help them amplify your message and share it. And finally, as I've said before, there is great free help available online, so don't be scared to have a look. There's going to be a survey about this, and I think probably everyone will go, there was, lots of stuff and not enough about the particular thing that I was interested in. So my strongest request would be, please fill out the survey. Please tell us what you'd like to hear more of, and then we will actually work with Foundation North, hopefully, to be able to deliver those specific workshops in the new year. I'm now going to open for questions on the chat. Right. From Liz to all panelists, is there a program to use to get emails to look as on screen? I'm assuming, Liz, that you are meaning you're meaning that they come out as an HTML or as a PDF, depending on the email marketing tool that you're using. Most of those are able to do that. So if you send a link or embed the link to your EDM into Facebook, when it pops up and opens on the screen, it will open as a PDF or as an HTML. Cool, let's have a look. What key piece of advice would you give to comms and marketing professionals who are just starting out? That is a really great question, Penny. Thank you. Okay, there's three. The first one is to know your audience and know your customer. If you don't know who that is, then do invest time trying to find out who it is and what they need. That's the most pivotal thing. That will ensure, if you have a firm picture of who that person is and why and how you add value, that you're really focusing on all of your communications and your programs on helping that person and being relevant. So as I said, people give to organisations that fix problems. So understand who you're helping, and then very clearly communicate how your organisation solves that. The second thing I would say is measure what you do or benchmark what you do. So if, for example, you do an online event, do a quick 5-question survey with SurveyMonkey afterwards to make sure that you're measuring some key metrics. That way, when you do your next webinar, you'll understand, in terms of improvement and appreciation, what you've done right and what you can do more of. Likewise, with social media. And then the third thing I would say is, don't be scared to try new things. Sometimes we get stuck and think that we can't do, we can't do video marketing properly because we can't feed that beast. Just rather than saying you're going to do one a month, focus on crafting something that comes out twice a year that's a really good wrap for everything that you've done during the year. So, know the customer, measure what you've done, and try new stuff. Because if we don't try new stuff, we don't know what's working. Thank you, Prabha. I'd just like to say thank you for your patience, and I know that I've covered an awful lot, and to be honest, I could have spent an hour and a half on each of those sections, and I've actually, because I know it's frustrating when you've been on a webinar and you go, I wanted to ask about, or I wish she'd talked about meta tags, or I wish she'd talked about, something else for the website. If you have got any specific questions about about anything that I've covered, that I'm going to do a one-time only invite, that if you want to send me your questions this afternoon, whoops, I am Suzanne.mcnichol. Whoops, and I can't spell because I haven't got my glasses on the right way. There you go, in the chat. So if there's anything else that you'd like me to answer, or if you'd like to know a little bit more about where to find out more about something, then flick it through to me. I will happily then put all of that into an FAQ document, which I will share with the Kite resources and the link to this recording on Monday. I would like to close. I would like to close if I could find my notes. Oops, I can't. Funny. I was going to close with a karakia, but I've actually lost my notes. So there you go. That's really unprofessional of me. But what I would like to say is, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for all of the work that you do in your communities every day to help people. Keep fighting the good fight. Keep asking for information. Keep inquiring, and go well. Ata maria. Te rā.